We have Mandy K Yu from BrainStation, owned by Conrad Group. Enjoy.
So hey everyone, we got a little intro onto what UX design is and what seduction is and how to entice users when they're using your product. I'm going to go into a little bit more about how user interface and how visual design can help you make your product more user-friendly and have it more enjoyable and satisfactory experience. So who am I? I work at Conrad Group, which is a tech agency. We specialize in business development and technology. We do anything from branding to web development, front-end, back-end, iOS development. And I've worked on a few things. I've worked on the BrainStation website. So not only have I had the opportunity to work on digital and web projects, we also opened up a new building right across the street on King and Spadina, and here I had the opportunity to do environmental design, such as directional signage, wayfinding systems, and just 3D. So these are just pictures of our new space. If you get in touch with me later on, I can get you in for a free tour and kind of educate you guys more about what BrainStation can offer for you guys. So we opened up a coffee shop right underneath BrainStation, and I've gotten to work on the mobile app as well. It's basically you get to order coffee before you get to this shop, and you can skip the line. So I've done multiple projects on packaging and more on the visual brand, coffee bags and stickers, as well. And I've also worked with Candid Vacations, and I've done a whole bunch of advertisements and promotional materials and social marketing. So I've gotten to work on a wide variety of projects, and I come from a visual design and visual art background. So it's great to use that kind of knowledge in fine arts to apply that in the tech space. So you guys already know kind of what UX UI design is. I want to kind of do a recap. So can anyone tell me what UX design is?
It's adding motivational elements to the experience and then removing friction.
Okay. Does anyone else have a more deeper understanding of it? Yep.
I think she talked a lot about seducing, so you're just trying to get people to do what you plan for them to do.
Okay. No. So, yeah. Yep, sorry.
I was going to say simple user interface to promote engagement.
Okay. And
I was going to say design that gives the user what they want. So putting yourself in your customer's shoes and then reflecting that in your forward-facing presence.
that's great. That's great. So if you ask 10 different people what UX design is, they will all tell you different things because there's no definite definition. There's no right or wrong answer really when you describe it. Some people say it's a methodology, it's a process of thinking, it's planning, it's mapping, and keeping the user always on the first level priority. So one of the things that UX designers do is called wireframing and information architecture. And here they don't touch any of the design elements. They don't do any of the user interface. They solely map out a user's journey and how they will interact and flow through the site or the product. This is an example of a wireframe, and UX designers use software programs such as OmniGraffle, Sketch, sometimes even Illustrator to kind of map out a skeletal structure of how a site will look like. The UI design is the visual part of it. These are designers who work on Photoshop and incorporate brand colors and typography to kind of visualize the whole experience on the site. So you can see here we've filled in the skeleton structure and we've added a lot of colors and padding, placement. So those are the two differences between UX design and UI design. And at a lot of different firms and agencies, they have people who do many roles. So at Conrad Group, we actually have separate roles for each person. We have UX researchers who collect data, UX designers who map out the site, and UI designers who make everything look beautiful. So these are just the overall phases of creating a digital product. I think Julie had mentioned before that you always want to collect data and users' needs and goals, design them, prototype them, and then test. You always want to test. It becomes sort of an iterative process, like she said. It's a cycle. You always want to collect the results, then go back to square one and kind of tweak and improve on where you need to, and then continue testing again. So what are the 10 essentials? What are the 10 techniques and tips that you can use for creating a site and for maybe improving an existing one right now? So the first thing you want to ask yourself on your checklist is, can your site be viewed across multiple screens, devices, and different sizes? Is it mobile friendly? That is the one thing that a lot of site creators don't really keep in mind these days, is when you have a smaller screen size, you need to reorganize your information, create bigger buttons, because the gestures and the touches are very different on this kind of size. So as you can see here, you have a desktop size, laptop, tablet, and iPhone. And as the screen size goes smaller and smaller, you see that the most important kind of information is shown. You don't want to show everything at once, like Julie said before, because you don't want to bombard users, and you also don't have the space to do so on such a small screen. So this really forces people to kind of think about what is the most important thing they want to include on their site and what they want users to see at first glance. We do this by using things such as relative units when designing instead of static units. So you can see when we use relative units, the layout still looks the same on a bigger size and on a smaller size. It kind of adapts to the screen environment. Another way of kind of reintroducing information on a smaller size is stacking information. We're so used to scrolling these days that it really doesn't matter if you show content one after another and vertically as well. So I wanted to show a live sample of responsiveness on Airbnb. If it opens. So you can see how when I resize the screen, the header and the hero image kind of adjusts as I move down. And note how the navigational elements at the top disappear once I scroll down to a mobile view. And instead, it's hidden away in a nav bar at the side. So things like hiding secondary options and secondary action items are very important to creating a very easy user experience. And you can also do so by adjusting layout and how things are seen, such as this gallery. And these, when this browser size reaches this size, this is called a breakpoint when it hits this specific dimension. And this would be, for example, like a tablet view. And you can see how things get moved around on the site. And if you go a step even further to the next breakpoint, this is what it would look like on a mobile site. So the next thing on your checklist that you want to ask yourself is, how can you tailor your product to each individual user to create a custom experience for everyone? Zomato is a great app that is a food service app, and it tells you what kind of restaurants are in your area. And it not only gathers your geolocation, but it also takes in the time and gives you restaurants that offer dinner or late night eats or drinks and cocktails. So it grabs my location and only shows me restaurants that are available for lunch if it's at 12 p.m. or breakfast if it's early in the morning.
What's the name of that app?
That's called Zomato. I think it used to be called Urban Spoon. Yeah, Urban Spoon, and then Zomato, they changed it to Zomato. So the next thing you want to ask yourself, how long does it take for your content to load? And there's a statistic that says 40% of consumers will leave your page if it takes more than 3 seconds. And if you think about it, 3 seconds in real time doesn't sound like a lot. 1, 2, 3. But when you're looking at a screen and waiting for content to load, it might seem like an eternity. And that is something called perceived latency. And a solution around that is pretty simple. If your site has a lot of content that needs to be loaded, such as Dribbble, so think of Dribbble as sort of like a Pinterest website for designers. What Dribbble does is it loads content in the viewport. So it loads content in one section at a time. And when you reach the bottom to load more, that's when it'll load the rest of the page. So that is one solution to avoiding long wait times and long load times. A third thing that you want to keep in mind, how is your brand being maintained across the site, and how does it look and feel? How can you create a cohesive experience that fits with the brand? So UI designers use something called a style guide or a style sheet, and this is sort of, it acts like a legend, and this is where you define how certain elements will look throughout the entire site, such as headers, colors, the look and feel of like a button, and also column sizes and column widths. So you want to make sure that all your headers look the same on every page, and all your buttons look very much similar, because you don't want users to relearn how to use your site as they go through different pages. So the fifth thing on your list should be legibility and readability. Does anyone know what the difference is between legibility and readability? Yep.
So legibility has to do with clarity as to whether or not the characters are understandable or not. And readability has to do with whether or not those characters, when you're essentially trying to understand whether the words make sense or not, are easy to read. So it has to do with things like kerning, for example. That's one aspect of readability instead of legibility.
Typographic expert over here. That's perfect. Up here you have an example of a header text that has the same kind of style and the same kind of typeface as the body copy. And it gets really hard to read if you're reading more than one sentence at a time. You want to make sure that there's enough contrast between these two elements. So choosing the right typeface for the right purpose for each element is very important for legibility and readability. Leading, for example, this is a tight leading example, and on the right we have something a little bit more loose. We have tracking, which is the spacing between letters. This is too loose as compared to something on the right. And we also have just plain too small text to read. And all these things sound very simple, and it sounds like it's common sense, but a lot of the times I see sites that have paragraph sections that are fully justified, and text that you can't read, text that's too small, and it doesn't create a great user experience. I'll just leave, and I won't be interested in reading any of your text. So the next thing on your list, how can you use hover states to minimize clutter in your page, and what ways can they improve your site? So Flipboard has this option where when you hover over each article, it displays 3 action items. And this way, instead of showing these 3 items on every single thumbnail of an article, it minimizes the visual capacity of each page. And another example that I wanted to show you guys is a site called Grove Made, and they sell a lot of handmade and just really nice wooden and like chic items on their site. Here we go. So what they do here is they use a hover state to kind of show one product at a time, instead of looking at like 3 different items or 5 different items at one time. So this is somewhat of a technique that they use for hover states, and they also do so with providing different angles of the products, but I can't seem to find that page right now. Here we go. So instead of having like a thumbnail image gallery below showing the different angles and different pictures and sizes of the photos, they use things like hover states to kind of show that information, and it allows users to interact more with your site. Leveraging empty states is something very important. A lot of the times when a user comes to a page that doesn't have any content in it, or if it's a no results page or an error page, a lot of the time designers just overlook that and they leave users on a dead-end page. So what can I do for the user once they get to this page? You want to tell them and educate them and teach them what kind of content will be displayed on this page, and also provide them with an action item so that they're not stuck on this one empty page. So something like Pocket, which is an app that allows you to bookmark articles and sites. If you don't have anything saved in your archive item, they will tell you what is going to be on this page and also prompt you to click on something that will get you to import content there. So the 8th thing that you want to ask yourself is, how are users used to the behaviors of your product, and how easy is it for them to navigate and use your site? So I'm using this music app as an example. It's called Bumble. It's not being used anymore, but can anyone tell me or guess what these 3 icons do at the bottom? It's a music player app. Yeah. Yep. That one's search. How about these 2? No idea, right? So Bumble kind of uses very ambiguous and abstract icons. I don't really know what their intentions were, whether it was, oh, this is unique and this is an interesting looking icon. I think it's cool and like different from everyone else, but ultimately it doesn't work well at all because your users aren't used to these kind of symbols. So you want to stay away from these abstract icons and use icons that are universally understood and very common. And this is an example of a user experience pattern or a UX pattern. And you have to make sure that you do enough research to find out like what kind of trends there are these days and what people are doing and how people are using sites, how people are navigating. And the last part of the session, I'm going to talk a little bit about how to add motion to your site, just for an extra flair of enjoyment. So along with having people on your team such as UX researcher, UX designer, UI designer, and visual designer, we have another person called an interaction designer. And they focus on movement and dynamic experiences on your site. And this is the extra cherry on top for your site. So you can take into note in how they treat the typography, how it appears, and also on the left side, how things scroll and how the numbers change. These are really, really small, minute details, but they create a very enjoyable experience. I could spend hours just browsing through the site with different transitions, different movement. I think the music's still playing. And the last thing on the list, of course, is always test and test to validate your project. Responsiveness, user adaptiveness, network awareness, design consistency, legibility and readability, hover controls, leveraging your empty states, being updated with UX patterns and trends, adding a bit of motion, and always testing to iterate. And that's it.
We'll take a few questions. If you guys, okay.
Yeah, how do you really balance the motion part, right? It's going to increase the loading time as seen by the Amy website. So how do you balance that and the responsive, or not the, I think it's called network or something?
Network awareness?
Network, yeah.
Okay, so a few things that you can work around that. I know that the Amy website needs high quality videos playing in the background, so that will like always take up more time. So having stuff like animations in the beginning, like a loading animation that they had, just to let your users know like how far along they have to wait, and just something that they can like look at. You know what I'm talking about? The little transition that they had, that loading animation. Yeah, so that's just like another solution. So, yeah.
I've got a question about UX patterns. So a lot of the UX patterns that most people in this room are used to are also a function of our age and growing up. For example, if somebody was 12 in this room, they might not know the save icon being denoted by a floppy disk because nobody uses those anymore.
Oh, okay.
So the question I have is about the evolution of UX patterns. As UX designers, how do you stay on top of what the next symbolic icon will look like for something as fundamental as saving, for example? Where do you get the inspiration as well as the standardization around that? And there's a dichotomy of that as well, where you have like that app which was trying to overcomplicate things with a
a circle, for example,
Yeah.
it doesn't really mean anything. But who leads that change, and how do you figure out that what the next save icon should basically look like for people using Snapchat, or even people who are younger than that using a different social network that none of us probably use.
Yeah. Okay, so for the save icon, I think it's been used so often that people don't actually associate it with a floppy disk. Like I personally don't. It's been around for so long, and like a lot of sites and products do use it. So it's not only like recognizing the object or like the symbol, but it's also how often it appears on different sites and different products as well. And if you want to stay up to date with that, it's just basic research and just being updated with current trends by reading articles and staying up to date with trends.
Cool. And as you know that your best friend is testing. Test the floppy disk over one of those weird circles, and you'll see if people can use it.
Fair.
People are used to that save icon just because like every product uses that as a save icon.
So you talked a bit about responsive design, and with that there's a push towards mobile first, where people are actually designing how their sites will look on phones. I was wondering if you'd like phones first and then blowing it up larger. Have you ever worked on a project like that, or any thoughts on where to start? Like, do you start big and then size it down, or start small and size it up?
So different companies do it different ways, and it also depends on what kind of timeline you have and the scope of the project. So sometimes, a lot of the times we use bootstrap grid systems, which allows big sizes to go to small sizes like very seamlessly and very easily. So we do a lot of that at Conrad, but I know it's good practice as well to work from small to big, because that forces you to like put the important objects and elements first and then make your way to like a bigger screen.
Thank you everyone for coming to our new office and our first inbound here.